questions that you would call on him for, his expertise. Would a Clinton presidency be a 2-for-1?
Good try, Carla. You know, the one
woman in the driver's seat.
Yeah, that's right. And who would ask for directions? I feel especially fortunate to have the expertise and experience that my husband will bring both to my campaign and to my presidency. But I know very well that the buck really stops with the president. That is the person who has to make the tough calls. You know, I would give advice to my husband when he was president. Sometimes he followed it, sometimes he didn't. But ultimately, it was his call. And then those of us who were part of that administration, we supported the decisions that he made. That's what will happen in my administration. But I know we've got a lot of repair work to be done around the world. You know, we've got to send a message as soon as I'm elected, not even waiting for inauguration, to the rest of the world, to the leaders and the people, that the aberration is over, that the bipartisan foreign policy consensus that worked so well for our country in the Cold War and post-Cold War era is back. And there isn't a better messenger than Bill, because he's continued to do his work through his foundation, his Clinton Global Initiative, to try to help solve problems for people in other parts of the world. And I also believe that it's really important for presidents to call on former presidents. You know, just this week, the president asked Bill and former President Bush to represent our country at President Yeltsin's funeral, and of course the work he did with tsunami and all the rest. So there is a traditional role that he will fill extremely well. There's the advisory, consultative role that is obvious that happens in every first family, whether it's explicit in public or not. And then there's the additional benefit that he has such a tremendous popularity around the world.
Senator?
Senator? In the back over there? Yes.
Senator, there may be a ballot proposition on getting the U.S. out of Iraq on the California ballot at the same time as the presidential primary occurs. Have you taken a position on that? Do you have anything to say about it?
Well, that's what we're trying to do right now. You know, we're trying to get the United States out of Iraq. We passed a very strong measure last week in both the House and the Senate. It's on its way to the President. It does continue to fund our troops so that we cannot, you know, in any way be charged with avoiding our responsibility to keep our troops as well equipped and safe as possible. But it says a couple of other things, which I have been advocating. I introduced legislation a few months ago which said, if the president is persisting in his policy to send people into Iraq, he cannot send anyone unless that person is properly equipped and trained and fully mission capable. And I was very pleased that the final version of the bill we're sending to the president includes that. I also was pleased that, you know, what I've been saying since my last trip to Iraq in January, which is that we've got to put more pressure on the Iraqi government to step up to the plate, is in the legislation as well. The president has to certify that the Iraqi government will quit giving us lip service and give us action. They've been saying for years they're going to deal with the hydrocarbon law. I've heard that from every Iraqi official I've met with, you know, going back to '03. They've said that they're going to deal with the de-Baathification, they're going to deal with the local elections. They haven't done any of it. So this legislation is a roadmap out of Iraq. We begin to bring our troops home at the earliest, starting in July, at the latest, starting in October. And so we are all on board in the Democratic majority in Congress. We have to hope that the president will, you know, reverse course and not veto the legislation. If he does, then we will take the next step to deal with him, to try to get his attention and focus on what needs to be done. The people of America have spoken, and he needs to follow course.
Senator
As the
Clinton,
national co-chair of your campaign, I say we got to cut this off, Senator.
One last question,
Staff
please.
is calling. Do we have time for one more question?
One more, please.
Yeah.
One more question.
Senator Clinton.
I'm wondering if we could ask you about how California's earlier primary has changed your thinking about the issue.
Well, I don't think it's changed my thinking about the issues. I have followed what's been going on here in California with great interest and with some sense of relief that at least part of our country was moving in the right direction on energy and health and some of the issues that I care deeply about. It has obviously added to the mix in an extraordinary way. You know, we've never had a primary process like this. We're all trying to figure out how to manage the resources, the time, the organizational challenges. But I'm excited that California is moving up like it has decided to do, because We're going to have the early states with a lot of intense retail politicking, which is also good for the process, you know, that very, you know, person-to-person, one-on-one effort. And then we're going to move to the bigger states. You know, my state of New York has moved up. California obviously moved up. Way more than half the population of America will have voted by February 5th. I think that will give us a very strong base on which to go into the general election. Now, it puts an enormous burden on me and my campaign. You know, obviously, you know, we have to cover a lot more ground, raise a lot more money to be able to compete in all of these states. But at the end of the day, I think we are extremely well positioned then to get into the general election. Because look at what's happening on the other side. They are basically taking positions diametrically opposed to us. You know, one of the leading candidates has called universal health care socialized medicine within the last several days. You know, they're acting as though Democrats are not patriots who won't defend the country. I welcome that debate. I am looking forward to it because I think their time is past. They have tried to govern on the basis of fear-mongering, and they are not going to be able to pull that off again. People have learned from the experience of the Bush administration and the Republican Congress what the differences are. We don't have to look too far back in history to see both Republicans and Democrats who led with a much better sense of what's important in America. And they understood we had to lay the groundwork for the future. And that's what we're going to do in the general election. We got to get there first, and I'm glad that California is going to help make that possible.
Has California's
Thank you
earlier
all.
primary prompted you to